Continue learning motif 3. For this motif, the first row is read from left to right in the chart. Therefore, the wrong side of the first row becomes the right side of the entire motif. The new stitch technique used is DC2 bobble DC cluster. Now, please watch me demonstrate motif 3. First, start with a slip knot and chain. I have a relatively small number of stitches here as well. Then start working the first row. Make 3 chain stitches. On the 5th chain stitch from the hook, work 1 double crochet. Continue to work 3 more double crochets, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches. After completing those, make 2 chain stitches, skip 2 stitches below, work 1 double crochet. Make 2 more chain stitches, skip 2 stitches below. Work 4 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 4 stitches. Starting from the chain stitches, repeat this stitch pattern. For the ending, work 5 consecutive double crochets. Now, we have completed the first row of the sample swatch. Continue to work the second row. Start with working double crochets, 1 in each stitch. After completing those, work 2 chain stitches, then work 1 DC2 bobble DC cluster. Hereafter, we will refer to this as the cluster pattern. First, on the right side of this double crochet, in the chain stitch, pick up 2 strands and work 2 incomplete double crochets. Then pick up this double crochet stitch and the 2 strands from the adjacent chain stitch on the left side. Work 1 incomplete double crochet. After completing those, yarn over and pull through all loops at once. This completes the cluster pattern. Work 2 more chain stitches. For the rest of this row, starting from these 4 double crochets. Repeat this stitch pattern. That is, every time you encounter 4 consecutive double crochets, correspondingly work double crochets. Then work 2 chain stitches. Work 1 more cluster pattern like this. Two chain stitches. Continue with this method. To complete this row, the ending is 5 consecutive double crochets. Once done, continue with row 3. The stitch pattern is identical to row 1. Start by corresponding double crochets. Then work 2 chain stitches. In this cluster stitch, work 1 double crochet, 2 chain stitches. Continue to complete this row. That concludes row 3. Next, repeat rows 2, 3. Keep going until the corresponding row numbers are completed. Don't cut the yarn after finishing. I will continue to explain edging using the sample swatch. Since the last row is crocheted on the right side, therefore, you don't need to turn the work for edging. After completing the crochet, work 1 chain stitch. Crochet 2 single crochets along each side edge of every row. Continue until only 1 row remains. In this row, continue with 2 single crochets. After finishing, at the insertion point of this double crochet, on the adjacent chain stitch, pick up 2 strands and work 1 single crochet, work 1 chain stitch and 1 single crochet. Continue at each insertion point, working 1 stitch respectively. Work 2 stitches in each chain space. Among these, work 1 stitch in 2 chain spaces. This means you will work 2 fewer stitches on this edge. The situation is the same as with the first 2 motifs. That is, the stitch count is the same as the first 2 motifs. For the insertion point of this double crochet on the edge, work 1 single crochet at the same time. Work 1 chain stitch and 1 single crochet. After completing, this edge also has 2 stitches per row. After finishing the topmost row, at the adjacent chain stitch to the right of this double crochet stitch, pick up 2 strands and work 1 single crochet, work 1 chain stitch and 1 single crochet. For the top edge, work 2 fewer stitches. Finally, on the edge double crochet stitch, work 1 single crochet at the same time. Work 1 chain stitch and 1 single crochet. finish with a slip stitch, and fasten off the yarn. Now, we have finished motif 3. Let's continue with motif 4. Also, treat the right side of the first row as the right side of the entire piece. The new stitch technique used is the DC2 tog. Now, please watch as I demonstrate motif 4. First, everyone refer to the pattern. After casting on, complete the first 2 rows. I have already finished these 2 rows. Both rows involve crocheting double crochets and chains. The double crochets in the second row that point to the chain stitches are all worked into the chain spaces. After completing them, I will continue demonstrating row 3. Start with 3 chain stitches. Turn your work. Correspondingly, make 2 double crochets. Two chain stitches. Then, on this double crochet stitch, work 5 double crochets simultaneously. After completing them, make 2 more chain stitches. Next, starting from the third double crochet stitch, correspondingly make double crochets. Continue all the way down to the last 2 stitches. After completing them, starting from these 2 chain stitches, repeat this stitch pattern. Continue all the way down to the end of the row. After completing the row, continue with row 4. Start by making 5 chain stitches directly. Turn the work over. Find the chain stitch adjacent to the right side of this double crochet. Pick up 2 strands of yarn from this chain stitch, and simultaneously make 5 double crochets. After completing them, on the chain stitch adjacent to the left side of this double crochet, similarly pick up 2 strands of yarn, and simultaneously make 5 double crochets. After completing them, make 2 chain stitches. Starting from the third double crochet stitch, correspondingly make 5 double crochets. Make 2 chain stitches. Then, Starting from these 5 double crochets, repeat this stitch pattern all the way down to finish the row. After completing it, continue with the 5th row, and start with 2 chain stitches. Turn the work. On the chain stitch adjacent to the right side of this double crochet, pick up 2 strands of yarn, and simultaneously make 4 double crochets. Then in this gap, simultaneously make 5 double crochets. Next, on the chain stitch adjacent to the left side of this double crochet, pick up 2 strands of yarn, and simultaneously make 5 double crochets. After completing it, work 2 chains. Then on the middle double crochet stitch, make 1 double crochet. Work 2 more chains. Next, on these 2 chains, and in the middle gap, make 5 double crochets in each. After completing it, crochet symmetrically as done previously. At the end, start by working 3 double crochets on the chain stitch adjacent to the left of the double crochet stitch. After completing them, continue in the same insertion point, and on the 3rd chain of the beginning chain, work 1 DC2 tog. This means first working 1 incomplete double crochet in each of these positions. Approximately on the 3rd chain stitch. Then yarn over, and pull through all loops at once. That completes the DC2 tog. This concludes the 5th row. Continue with the 6th row, start by chaining 5. Turn your work. In these 2 gaps, work 5 double crochets in each. then chain 2. Next, in these 2 chain spaces, work 2 double crochets in each. In this stitch, work 1 double crochet. Then chain 2. Continue following the chart to complete this row. Note that the last double crochet is worked by picking up the edge double crochet stitch. Do not work into the top of the beginning chain. This concludes the 6th row. For the upcoming 7th row, I have already completed the initial stitches. Each time, work 5 double crochets into this gap. Chain 2 on each side. In these stitches, correspondingly work double crochets. Work 2 double crochets into each hole. At the end, after working 2 double crochets into a hole, you can continue by working the last double crochet into the hole, or pick up the 3rd chain and work the last double crochet through both loops. Now, we have also covered the 7th row. For the upcoming 8th row, work double crochets into the corresponding stitches, or holes, and work the corresponding chain stitches. After completing the first 8 rows, repeat the stitch pattern from rows 3 to 8. All the way until the 3rd to last row. Once you finish, work the remaining 2 rows in the corresponding stitches, or work double crochets into the holes, and work the corresponding chain stitches. After completing all rows, proceed to crochet the edging. The edging process is the same as for motif 2, which means you need to flip it to the right side to crochet the edging. Refer to the edging demonstration for motif 2, and follow the chart instructions. Complete the edging for motif 4 in the same way. This way, that concludes motif 4. Let's move on to motif 5. The situation with motif 5 is the same as motif 4, where the right side of the first row becomes the right side of the entire motif. The total number of rows is also the same as motif 4. Additionally, the last row is crocheted on the wrong side. Therefore, the edging process is the same as for motif 2. No new stitch techniques are used in motif 5. It includes working single crochets, chain stitches, or double crochets. For those stitches working on chain stitch, pick up the corresponding space and crochet into it. The rest are worked by picking up stitches. Each ending involves picking up a stitch. For the standing stitch, make a double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook. Please refer to the chart. Complete motif 5 following the pattern. Let's continue with motif 6. For motif 6, the right side of the first row will be the right side of the piece. The new stitch technique used is HDC 3 large puff. Now, watch as I demonstrate motif 6. First, start with a chain. Here, I have a smaller number of stitches. Then, begin working the first row. Make 3 chain stitches. Next, work 1 HDC 3 large puff stitch. Start with an incomplete half double crochet, that is, yarn over once. Locate the 5th chain stitch from the hook. Pick up 1-2 loops and pull the yarn through. This creates the incomplete half double crochet. Slightly enlarge the loop. Continue with the 2nd incomplete stitch. Yarn over once. Insert the hook and pull the yarn through. Slightly enlarge the loop. Using the same method, work the 3rd one. After completing it, yarn over, and draw the yarn through all the loops on the hook. Leave 1 loop on the hook. Then yarn over and pull through all loops at once. This is a HDC 3 large puff stitch. We'll call this the large puff stitch from now on. Then work 2 chain stitches. In the same insertion position, work another large puff. After completing it, work 1 chain stitch, skip 3 chain stitches below. Note: this might pull the adjacent chain stitches tighter. You can gently stretch them to check. Make sure you don't miscount the stitches. In the 4th chain stitch, work 1 single crochet, one chain stitch. Continue to skip 3 stitches, and in the 4th stitch, at the same time, work 3 large puffs, with 2 chain stitches connecting each of them. After completing, starting from this chain stitch, repeat this stitch pattern, always skipping 3 stitches while crocheting. On the 2nd chain from the hook, work 2 large puffs, with 2 chain stitches in the middle. And then on the last chain stitch, work 1 double crochet, Now, that concludes the first row. Continue with the second row. Make 1 chain stitch. Turn to the wrong side. On the edge, double crochet stitch. Work 1 single crochet. Then on the adjacent stitch on the left, work 1 single crochet. Two chain stitches. Then on the short needle stitch below, work 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Two chain stitches. On the stitch of the middle large puff on the left side, work 1 single crochet. Two chain stitches. Then, starting from these 3 double crochets, repeat this stitch pattern. Finally, on this large puff, and on the beginning chain, work 1 single crochet into each. That's how you finish the second row. Continue with the third row. This row's pattern needs to be staggered from the first row. Work 1 chain stitch. Turn your work. And work 2 single crochets correspondingly. Work 1 chain stitch. Then work 3 large puffs into the middle double crochet stitch with 2 chain stitches between each variation stitch. After completing them, work 1 chain stitch, then work 1 single crochet into this single crochet stitch, followed by 1 chain stitch. Next, start from this large puff. Repeat this stitch pattern. Finally, on the edge in the last 2 single crochet stitches, work 1 single crochet into each. Row 3 is completed. Continue to crochet row 4. Start with 3 chain stitches. Turn the work. On the second single crochet stitch, work 2 double crochets together. Then work 2 chain stitches. In the middle large puff, work 1 single crochet, followed by 2 chain stitches. In the bottom single crochet, work 3 double crochets together. You will notice that this row follows the same crochet pattern as row 2, but the stitches are staggered. Continue to follow the chart to complete this row. And on the second to last single crochet, working 2 double crochets together. On the final stitch, work 1 double crochet. Row 4 is now completed. Row 5 has the same stitch pattern as row 1, but all stitches in row 5 are worked into the corresponding stitches below. Complete row 5 following this pattern. Starting from row 6. Repeat rows 2 through 5. Continue crocheting until the corresponding row numbers are completed. After completing, refer to the pattern to crochet the edging. The edging for motif 6 is similar to that of motif 2. Make 1 chain stitch, then flip to the right side to continue crocheting. On both the top and bottom edges, work 2 fewer single crochets. At each corner, work 1 single crochet, 1 chain stitch, and 1 single crochet. Work single crochets evenly along both sides. The stitch count should match the number of stitches on the side of the previous piece. When crocheting along the side, if the edge consists of single crochets, then correspondingly work 1 single crochet. If the edge is made of single crochets, you can pick up the stitch of a single crochet at the edge and crochet like this, or you can roughly pick up a few strands of yarn at the edge. If the edge consists of double crochets or double crochet starting chains, work 2 single crochets for that section. Just follow the chart for crocheting. That's it. We have finished discussing motif 6. Next, we need to sew all the motifs together. You can refer to the layout diagram, arrange all the motifs accordingly, and then sew them together, both horizontally and vertically. Below, I will use 4 small sample pieces to demonstrate the sewing method briefly. You can watch my demonstration first, and then proceed to do it yourselves after learning. First, take a length of yarn in the corresponding color. Thread the sewing needle. Note that the length of the sewing thread should be moderate, preferably not exceeding 1 meter. Too long makes it inconvenient for sewing. If it's not enough later, you can just join a new yarn and continue sewing. First, find the corner chain stitches of the 2 motifs. This is the first single crochet on this edge. The adjacent one on the right side is the corner chain stitch. This is the last single crochet on this edge, which is also the first single crochet of the edging. Pick up the back loop from the wrong side of this corner chain stitch. That is, the strand farther away from you. This is the last single crochet on this edge. On the left side, you will find the corner chain stitch. From the right side, pick up the strand closer to you. Tie off the yarn tail and secure it. Next, each time, pick up the back loops of 2 motifs and whip stitch through the adjacent half loops. You can weave in the yarn tails as you sew. Don't pull the thread too tight. And don't make it too loose either. Continue sewing them together correspondingly. Pay attention. All motifs should be oriented correctly, with the bottom being the first row and the top being the last row. Each motif should be placed this way. Note that if you make a mistake while sewing, or if you accidentally add or miss some stitches, causing them not to match, you can make appropriate adjustments in the final section. On the side with fewer stitches, sew twice in the same position. And sew normally on the side with more stitches. Use this method to make adjustments. Ensure it looks roughly even and neat. I will continue to sew each stitch in sequence here. After finishing the last short needle position, sew the corner lock stitch as well. Continue sewing the left side motif using the same method, from this corner lock stitch all the way to this corner lock stitch. Pay attention to the direction of the motifs. Don't make the corner too loose. If there are more motifs on the left side, continue sewing them normally. After finishing all the sewing, you can sew one more time at the end, and then tie off and weave in the ends neatly. Next, everyone can follow this method to sew all the rows together. After sewing all the rows, follow the same method to sew all the vertical edges as well. Each time you encounter a corner, sew the corner chain stitch to the corner chain stitch normally. Ensure there are no noticeable large gaps. After finishing the sewing, tie a knot and weave in the ends on the wrong side. This way, we have covered the sewing process. Next, we will crochet the edging. The edging is done on the right side. Work in rounds along the edges of the motif. The new stitch technique used here is the SC2 tog. Please watch as I continue to demonstrate with this sample. First, place the motif with the right side facing you. Below each motif is the foundation chain. Above is the last row. Join the yarn in the corner chain space at the top right. The corner chain space may not be very obvious. You can spread it open to see. Here, we crochet one single crochet in the same position, one chain stitch, and one single crochet. Take out the corresponding color yarn. Hook the yarn out. The joining is now complete. Start working the first round. Make one chain stitch. Work one single crochet in the place where you joined the yarn. Continue crocheting single crochets on the left side. Note: you need to decrease evenly across the blanket top and bottom. You can work 1-2 SC2 tog in the approximate middle of each motif. No decreases are needed on the sides. The number of decreases can also be increased or decreased as needed. Just ensure that the edge lays flat after completing it. Here, we will work a few single crochets, corresponding one by one. Then, I'll demonstrate the crochet method for a SC2 tog. First, insert the hook into the adjacent stitch on the left side, and draw the yarn through. Continue by inserting the hook into the next adjacent stitch on the left side, and draw the yarn through. Then, yarn over, and pull through all loops at once. This is a SC2 tog. You can also decrease one more stitch if needed. It's too long and inconvenient for sewing. When you finish the last single crochet position of this motif, you can work a single crochet at the seam for sewing. Just pick up a few threads. Then start from the first single crochet of the next motif, and continue crocheting single crochets. Don't forget to make a SC2 tog at the top of each motif. Finish crocheting along the top edge. After completing it, work a single crochet in the corner chain space. Make a mark on this single crochet. Continue to work a single crochet in each single crochet along the side. When you encounter a seam, pick up a few threads and work a single crochet. Every time you reach a corner, work a single crochet in the corner chain space, and make sure to mark it. Repeat this process. Finish this round. Pay attention to decrease stitches on the bottom as well. The decrease pattern should match the top. Once completed, join with a slip stitch in the first single crochet stitch. This way, the first round is completed. Move on to the second round. Start with 3 chain stitches. Work 1 double crochet in the same position. Then start from the adjacent stitch on the left side, and work double crochets correspondingly. Continue all the way to 1 stitch before the stitch marker. Once completed, work 3 double crochets into the stitch at the stitch marker position. Then, mark the middle double crochet. For the following rounds, always work double crochets correspondingly, and work 3 double crochets at the stitch marker position each time. Additionally, always mark the second stitch. Complete this round. After finishing the last single crochet position, at the starting double crochet insertion point, work 1 more double crochet. Then pick up 2 strands of yarn at the top of the beginning chain and join with a slip stitch. This completes the second round. For the following third and fourth rounds, the crocheting method is identical to the second round. Each beginning starts with 3 chain stitches, then work a double crochet in the same insertion point as the slip stitch. Make 1 double crochet. In between, work double crochets into each stitch in sequence. At each corner, work 3 double crochets into the marked stitch. For the third round, continue to mark the middle stitch. By the fourth round, no further marking is needed. For the ending, always return to the starting double crochets. Same insertion position. Work 1 more double crochet, then join with a slip stitch. After completing the last round, cut the yarn and weave in the ends. Once the blanket is completed, you can press it to make it flat. Up to this point, we have covered everything about this blanket. If you have any unclear parts during the crocheting process, don't hesitate to join our Facebook group to get supports. Susan's family. Support your handwork experience. Enjoy the joy of life. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next episode.